Hi, welcome to Firefly Chats. My name is David Miretti, and with me today we have Jeremy Slinker. Jeremy is the Director of Customer and Product Support at Renegade. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, David.
So, Jeremy, first let's start with a little bit about yourself. What are some of your hobbies?
You know, I try to golf some, and I say that probably a little stronger than my abilities. I really try to golf some. I love it. It hates me. I'm working on that relationship. It's still a work in progress. Outside of that, truly, we like to fish. My wife is a fisher lady. That might be the right way to say it. Her fire probably burns stronger than mine. We vacation at my parents' location in Newbern, North Carolina on the coast, and she'll spend all day on the pier or out on the boat. I have 2 or 3 hours in me, and then I call it a day. But we enjoy it. It's relaxing.
Yeah, there's a lot of fishers in our family as well. They love bass fishing.
Yes, sir.
So,
one of my favorite.
So we're in most Renegades.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to maybe discuss a little bit about our two companies' history together.
Okay.
What has been your experience with Firefly and Renegade?
So my career with Renegade, I started there in October of 19. But prior, I'd had some Firefly experiences in some previous lives that I lived, working in higher end, RVs and RV companies. Renegade, I think, was one of the last, maybe not quite last, that actually brought it in. I mean, one thing that makes Renegade different than others from my experience is their want to be accurate over wanting to be fast. So we don't try to bring things to the market just to check a box of being first. We want to bring it to the market knowing we can stand behind it comfortably. I've got some luxuries that I have a chance to benefit from, and that's my team members. So there's 17 of us in the customer experience, department, including myself. 7 of us have 20 plus years. I will celebrate my 29th year this year. I've got a 31-year tenured gentleman.
Wow.
And then I've got a few that are over 24 years. So I don't know it all. I don't claim to know it all. I do try to dive into things and get my hands dirty. You and I have had some experiences together out in our travels. We're not bashful. We're not ashamed to say that it beat us, but then we have resources to ensure that we win.
And I love that about you guys, is that you never quit, and it's like an incessant pursuit of knowledge.
Yes, sir.
And I love partnering with you guys for that. You really knock it out of the park. And one of your co-owners actually kind of hit it on the head, and she said that Renegade created the magnet that attracts great people in the company, outside the company, and I think that's really accurate.
It's a great way to say it. I've never heard it that way before, but we do a lot of rallies. I'll say that about 4 or 5 a year. And what's different with Renegade is we do not sanction or put on any of these rallies. They are typically put on by our owners group. They created an LLC, and they are the sponsors of our rallies, and we're just invited. So I have a lot of face-to-face with different folks, different grades of Renegades, some that are first-time buyers, some that have bought their 5th or 6th coach. And you kind of hear that same feedback in different ways. I think what separates us primarily, and I kind of touched on it a minute ago, is we want to be right over fast. And then our owner community is a step above others. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about anyone else. This is an accolade that they earn, and I just recognize it, so I'll speak on it. They truly help one another. They don't just say they do. Our owners group Facebook page, as an example, is probably the single most used resource from our owners from a technical standpoint. They have a search engine in there where they can go in and type in, vaguely an issue, and it'll populate conversation that has happened over years via the owners themselves, and they'll find resolution. It's just a world-class group of folks, along with a world-class, dealer channel. Our dealers are spectacular as well. With the level of our quality and the expectations that we've set out in the world, we put a little bit of stress on those guys of what their deliverables need to be. And over the years, we have kind of fine-tuned our dealer channel down to the right folks. And they've been with us for years at that point. If it's not broke, as they say, don't fix it.
Right. So thank you very much, Renegade family. We had over 100 questions submitted. Wow. And we're not going to answer 100 questions one by one. What we did was we consolidated those into several groups and broad categories. And then if we have time at the end, we'll cover some of the more specific questions that did not fit in any category. So the categories we're going to cover today are the basic overview of the system, how things are integrated, what things are integrated. Then we're going to go to updates and support, some troubleshooting and education type things.
Sure.
And then the last thing we'll do is talk about the app. So first we'll talk about integration. And integration, for anybody who doesn't know, it's just we're connecting to all of the components in the coach. And so, Jeremy, what are some of these components that could be connected through the Firefly system?
Sure. Can start with some of the larger components. Generator's probably the top one there. I mean, we do have all the functions of the generator through you guys' system integrated in from automatic gen starts, and then just the simple manual on and offs whenever you want to to run it yourself and not really rely on the AGS. Inverters from a charging standpoint are ran through. All the lighting, water pumps, simple systems are there as well. We try to make it where we have a single port of access, a single source of operation.
Control the whole coach at your fingertips.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then you guys know, you guys help pioneer. Over these last several years, apps have become a great big deal. So now people are migrating that same function to their handheld phone or tablet, which just makes it easier for us as well. I mean, who wants to go inside and touch a screen to turn something on when they're sitting out front with their group of friends? So that's just the way the system and technology is advancing in a positive way. That's where we are lucky as well. I mean, and I'll keep touching on this fact because it's true. We have the ability to work with you folks who are not shy or ashamed to try to funnel technical support to you. There are some suppliers out in the world that shy away from this. They want it to funnel through a different way, and you guys embrace our mutual customers. And that makes life easier on us because truthfully, we know what we do and why we do, but we don't know all the way what you do and why you do. And sometimes that is the answer to the question, and you're always there to support. So
thank you.
Thank you.
And we really want to be that partner for you guys. And like you said, we may not know all the answers, but we'll find them.
Yes, sir.
We'll seek them out and get them.
Thank you. Thank you.
So behind all of that is a highly customized software, and that is all coach specific. It's floor plan specific, year specific, and they're not really interchangeable. This comes from several months of discussions between the OEMs before the coaches ever even produced. And there's a lot of discussions with the connected components, the people at Renegade and our design team to decide what goes into these coaches. Mm-hmm. So we do have some specific questions. First, we're going to start with Andy H. from Pennsylvania. He says his AquaGo resets to 95 degrees every time he turns off the system. So can you tell us about that? What's happening with that?
Yeah, so they have the owner has a manual ability to run that temperature up to a max of 120 degrees. Whenever that system is cycled off power, it defaults back to 95 as a fail-safe. 120 can actually scold someone if it's sustained. Yeah. So it's not an issue with the system at all. It's actually the complete opposite. It's a fail-safe to ensure your youngster, your grandkid, your kid, or yourself doesn't get scalded. So it's by design just to protect people.
Okay. Next question is from Bob S. in Oregon. He's got a 2024 Vienna. He says his AquaHot coolant temp isn't showing on his Firefly screen, but it shows on the reporter.
Sure. That could be a multitude of things. I'm probably going to back up and just kind of make a statement here. That will be the first step of most of these questions that we get in the world, and you guys actually educate us on this as well. When there's an update done, sometimes it will set your settings back to a default, and something could be deselected. So if you've seen it in the past and you don't see it today, I would go back and say, was there an update performed? One thing that we push to our owners and our dealers is to go through and take pictures of your settings page.
Yeah, that's huge.
And save it. So if you do an update, you have a reference to go back to. 9 times out of 10, that's what that's going to be. Another way around it, you can unplug your coach, take all power away from your coach itself, then cycle your 12 volt and wait a few seconds when you turn the 12 volt off. If you think about what you do at home, if with some of your computer, unplug, plug back in, that still applies in this application as well. So I'd make sure that your setting pages and your items are checked as your coach is built to make sure it's model specific, and then cycle the power. 85% of your issues will go away. And then if you still have a lingering issue, that's where my team and then your team comes into play to support.
And they can always contact your support through warranty@renegaderv.com, or you can always call us here at Firefly. We're ready to help anytime.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that question especially, we talked with the component manufacturer, and it was a decision that kind of limited that on the Firefly screen for ease of use of the screen, so that it's not so cluttered up. There's a lot of detail that some people that are nerds like myself would love to see, but other people just want to be able to turn the water heater off, turn the water heater on, something like that, or turn the furnace on, turn the furnace off. Yeah. So then we have another Bob from Florida. He's got a 25 Veracruz, and he wants to know about the disconnected message he receives on the LPG.
That's going to go back to kind of the answer that I provided before. I mean, sometimes it will just lose that communication with it. 9 times out of 10, it's because of an update. Another is just a hiccup, needs to have the power, cycled off. If that doesn't fix it, then we look at wire. You may have an issue with the communication wire between the two, which is simply diagnosed.
And sometimes the tank will be set at 80%. There's a little floater in there that shows it's full at 80% so it can boil off. And so if you look in the morning and it shows it as full, and then you go through the hot day in Florida and it goes a little bit above that 80%, it's going to show disconnected as well. And that's going to be a safety feature. It's still going to work just fine. You can always just turn on your range and your cooktop and see if gas is coming out and there's a little flame. So sometimes it's just the temperature outside. Yep. Next one is William in Pennsylvania. He's got a 21 Vienna. Roger H. in New Jersey. A lot of people asked about this stuff. Dana in Texas, and many others. They want to use aftermarket upgrades for their coach, like Sea Level, Victron Servo, solar, different battery types, whatever. So as I mentioned before, the software has to be written for each connected component, and it's really highly specialized. It looks easy, but there's a lot that goes in behind that.
Yes.
So you talked a little bit about the options screen. If someone wants to upgrade a component on their coach that was an option when they purchased it, how do they go about that?
Okay, so that makes it a little bit easier if it's an actual option. With you guys, we create families of software, if that makes sense. So if I've got a line 3 product and they're built, as far as components, similar, maybe some floor plan changes, maybe a foot longer as an example, but the components are similar. You guys create a family of programming for it that's applicable for all. And then we can a la carte the boxes of the components that are in there. So if they want to add to their coach today, and it was an option, the programming is there. The largest hurdles has been overcame at that point. So reaching out to our team at the warranty at renegaderv.com is probably the first step I would do, so we can run them through to make sure they have all components. Sometimes taking out an AGM and putting in the lithium is just not that simple. And from an end user battery to battery, there are a lot more fuses. There's a lot more components that come into play.
They charge at a different rate.
That's exactly right. State of charge and voltage, right? A lot of things that people don't they don't understand. Mm-hmm. So we do have, from an option standpoint, parts kits for upgrades as well. So if you ordered your coach A and later down the road you want to add it B, we do have a part kit to ensure you're getting everything that you need, and we have some expertise in as far as assisting the install.
Can they also have it installed at your location?
100%. Yeah, we do have our newer facility that we bought in November of 24 just for the customer experience side of Renegade. So we've expanded to a 10-bay service facility. And by 10 bays, they're 25 foot wide by 55 foot long. So they're monstrous.
Even I could park in those.
They're safe,
awesome.
Which helps us, with our efficiencies and keeping the culture right.
It's really a beautiful facility. So you run it so well.
I appreciate that. I mentioned earlier, I'm spoiled. I have got a great tenured team. It may look like me, but no, those guys they drive the business. I'm spoiled.
Let's move on to the next section: updates, troubleshooting, and education. So, Jeremy, if we're looking at these connected components on the RVC network, what's a good indicator it's working correctly?
This goes back to the 80s and 90s, right? From VCRs, green is good and red is bad, typically, right? So just keep it simple. Now, when you see red, it doesn't mean the sky is falling. I mean, there's no henny penny at this point in time. Use your resources. Go back to some of the things that we talked about. Make sure, if you had an update, make sure your settings are right. Cycle power. Those will typically fix most of the issues. Then reach out to us or Firefly as you guys, allow that to happen. Thank you again. If it's beyond just a simple reset or settings are off.
So green is good.
Green is good, red is bad.
That's usually going to be an LED on your screen
Yep.
or behind the component. And red indicates the problem might be there. Usually there's a little triangle that'll show up on your screen as well. Don't freak out. All of these things are solvable. And all of these things, we can help you get back on the road.
Yes, sir.
So next one. We also want to make sure the plug connections are solidly seated
Yes.
as well. You know, if you see dashes on your screen, a lot of times that's just a plug that has somehow worked loose over the bumps and everything on the road. So just make sure that all your plugs are firmly seated.
You know, we've got a pretty good owners group, as we've talked about, and I've had several of those folks tell me, I can only imagine taking my house down the road at 70 mile an hour. So they understand, how things move and how things shake. So
And your product holds up pretty well on the road.
I appreciate that.
We don't see a lot of warranty claims or anything through Renegade, so we appreciate the quality behind it too.
Thank you.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your troubleshooting and service experience, and maybe give us some broad tips about the Firefly? You mentioned making sure the selections are there, making sure that the plugs are firmly and solidly plugged in. What are some other easy things that coach owners can do if they feel that there's a problem with the system?
You know, that's a tough question, just because the way everything is advancing from a technology standpoint. We're talking about inverters, and now inverters are smart, batteries are smart. Our first line of defense outside of those two kind of fail-safe, dummy-proof approaches is we try to funnel folks back to their selling dealer for technical advice. It's easy for me to think, and I'm guilty of this, I'm human, that I have the capability, and I have made things worse sometimes just by not having some sort of constraint to myself. So, we try.
I know everything.
We try to
ask my wife.
Yes, sir. We try to make sure that people understand that we're not questioning their claimed ability. Some cans are best left shut and let someone else open them. So that's a tough question. It would have to be kind of specific. We try to protect ourselves from ourselves, if that makes sense to you. So try the easy things. If not, make sure that you understand your resource and communication path. One of the best things that we do from a customer experience standpoint at Renegade is we work with anyone. A lot of our owners are not tied to a specific location logistically. So they're everywhere, and you may not be next to a Renegade dealer. We work with any other dealer on the planet. We work with mobile technicians. If I was an owner and I had really good success with this person and they weren't in my network, but you trusted them, we work with them every single day. So we don't tie folks down. If they say, hey, it might be above my education level, but my guy is next door and I work with him, I trust him, great. Get him on the phone and let's talk through this. We'll work directly with them. I'm a big advocate of not having to go backwards, and sometimes leave the can alone and let the professional open the can.
Yep. And we're going to touch on a question that kind of asks that same thing in a little bit. We have one from Roger F. in Washington, Price in Oklahoma, Terry in Indiana, hey Terry, and a lot of others. When is an update needed? And so a lot of times people think that the system in their coach is similar to a phone, and phones get the updates pushed out automatically. The system in your coach is a little bit different. It's got that highly customized software running it, but if you mess up the software, you can really damage your whole coach. So we want to have that very carefully done in a very systematic way so that people don't accidentally brick their coach, their home. And so this is different. The process of updating your coach is different than updating the app. The app is automatic.
Yes.
It doesn't affect the coach, but this affects everything in your coach, including things that could kill or burn you.
Correct.
So we have to be very careful about that. So why do we need it? There's a lot of reasons, right? There could be a new component added. There could be a change in the supporting component software. So let's say, for example, your AquaHot library changes. There might be an update to update that behind the scenes. We might do an update to integrate a new coach at the request of Renegade. Or there could be some things that are just cosmetic. Like some of the software changes are, let's remove the 25th anniversary logo.
Yes.
Or let's make this button red instead of blue, something like that. So a lot of times it goes back to what you mentioned earlier. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
And you bring up a good point there. As technology has advanced, most people who are familiar with Firefly, they think that it controls everything. And it does in the broad statement that I just made, but not to the point that some of the components that it's speaking to has its own boards and its own firmware, and communication is going both ways.
Everything's smart.
And if it's not broken, right, don't. But sometimes update is required because, as you mentioned, it may be one of the components itself driving it and not necessarily Firefly itself. Yeah. Let the pros open the can. Let the pros open the can.
And again, this is a lot of this is safety focused.
100%, yes, sir.
And it does require those special files. We can send them to you. You can do it on your own. You rock your main screen forward, you put a USB in the back, and you follow very specific steps. You can do it on your own. I mean, I'd say 95% of coach owners feel comfortable doing it, but it's not something where we just want you doing it every Tuesday. So that's the answer about software updates.
Yes, sir.
So here's the question that I think you're going to enjoy, Jeremy. This is from Bon in Tennessee. She's got a 24 Valencia. And Bon, I love this question because you are such a rarity to ask this. She says, are there any screens or settings that we shouldn't mess with? Everybody else is like, I want to mess with this. I want to change this. I want to upgrade. But this is awesome.
Button pushing, 101, just go. Bon needs to teach this to everyone that she crosses path with, or he crosses path with.
Exactly.
Because they're preset. They're set for you to pick up and go use. So there's really no changes that need to be made. And
they're already set at the optimal.
They're right where they're supposed to be. And my wife will tell you, I am guilty of, what does that do? The instructions are sitting here. I don't read them until things don't work.
Right.
I am kind of one of those on my own personal thing. So, Bon, please teach everybody that, this approach.
And I would say there's two specific places that you really want to be careful what you're changing in the Firefly system. One is that little gear icon where you have the options and the settings for the coach. If you change the wrong floor plan or something, the computer brain behind that is going to send out the wrong signal, and you could damage your coach. So you need to be really careful in the gear icon setting page. And then the second one is probably the charging. If you change the battery and you have a lithium charge setting for a regular AGM battery, you could do some damage to your coach. So you need to know what you're doing in those two areas, especially, I'd say.
Exactly.
That's a great question, though.
With the batteries, as you mentioned, you can leave yourself stranded as well. You have no juice. It's looking for, state of charge when it's voltage or vice versa. So, yes, sir. Yep. Great point.
Dan in Virginia and some others asked about tanks. So Firefly integrates with all kinds of tank sensors. We have pressure, we have sonar, resistance. There's all kinds of tank sensors available that we integrate with. So after they check that it's plugged in and that they have the correct floor plan selected, I really would like them to contact the warranty line at Renegade or contact our support line. Moving right along, the next question is from Eugene in Texas with a 2020 Veracruz. He wants to know a little bit more about AGS, automatic generator start. So Jeremy, can you discuss a little bit about what automatic generator start does, and then I'll finish with some ways that we kind of turn it off.
Yeah, sure. So really with the AGS, it allows you to not be plugged into landshore, and you'll be inverting off your 12 volt. And the AGS system is monitoring the state of your batteries. So as we talked before, some of those settings, all the settings are preset. Some of those you do not need to touch. This is one of those, do not touch. So it's set as a minimum threshold. And typically with an AGM, as an example, we're 11.8 volts. So it's monitoring your 12 volt, your house battery, that bank and its status. Once it gets to 11.8, it will send the signal over and start your gen up to charge that battery bank again, so you can continue to operate and utilize all the function of your coach while not plugged into landshore. Pretty simplistic system, truthfully, is just watching battery voltage, sends a start signal, it fires up. It is set to run for a predetermined amount of time depending on your battery bank. As we all know with our cell phones, as a great example, if you short charge all the time, you're killing the life of your battery. So if your generator runs for 2.5 hours, it's supposed to. Don't panic, don't freak out. That way it conserves and preserves your battery life.
Do you guys also start it up with HVAC loads, or if the shore power is insufficient?
It is a backup. As far as I say that it's a primary. So let's say you're in a campground and you're plugging the 50 amp and it has a brownout. So your voltage goes down, which could damage things inside. It will recognize and try to fire over it and take over just to preserve any laptops, computers, as an example, things you have plugged in inside.
Okay. And so this is a safety feature again. We don't want that generator going off when your coach is inside the pole barn, right?
Correct.
Or inside your base.
Correct.
And so the reasons it'll go off there are several I'll mention. One is if you press manual off, it's going to turn off. The second is if it reaches that state and it's satisfied.
Sure.
You'll have to manually set those settings and turn AGS back on whenever you power cycle the coach. And because we don't want it to memorize something and then have it go off while you're in storage, right? So every time you go in, you're going to have to set the AGS and set your desired parameters or use the defaults. But we don't want it going off at times that you don't want it going off.
That is correct. You have to manually turn on the AGS system or off. I would not run around with it on. There's just no need. If you find yourself boondocking, as the words in the modern day, RVing, then turn it on. I would say do not change the battery threshold parameters that are predetermined. We want to look at some of the hours of operation. If you're one of these state parks, you cannot have your generator on at a certain time. And within the Firefly system, they can manipulate that time and put those times there.
Yep, that's great. So the next question is from Archie in North Carolina and several others. They have some questions about solar. And so after you have power cycled the coach, make sure that the solar is connected. If you see nothing on your screen, you probably don't have it selected in your options. You just don't have the little check mark checked.
Correct.
If you see dashes on your screens, you have it selected in your options, but it's not communicating. So there's something between the board and the solar controller that's creating a disconnect.
Yes, sir.
And can you talk a little bit about the solar controllers, where they might find them, what kind of troubleshooting tips you might have beyond that?
So we typically put our solar controllers down in either our battery compartment or the inverter compartment. We're talking about power management, so we try to keep all those components together, easy for you guys to find. There were a couple of years back that we did not have our solar system communicating through Firefly. It was a standalone controller with a dongle, so you can have an app for your phone. Once again, just the apps are taking over the world. So those folks could be anywhere at dinner and just look and see what kind of power they have coming in and or manipulate. Location, inverter compartment, battery box compartment. We try to stick true to. And
do those have a green LED when they're communicating?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
yes, sir.
There we go again.
You have the hazard. If it's not right, you'll see some red. And if everything is good, you'll see the green.
Okay. Next one is from Valerie in Arizona, George in Alberta, and he has a 23 Verona 36 VSB, and there's several others that ask questions about this as well. Can you walk us through? So the inverter is running off the batteries, and we're seeing a problem on the Firefly screen. We're not seeing something that we usually see. What's probably the best step for them to start this troubleshooting?
Sure.
The first step, at least.
So inverters are a little bit different, but with the same philosophy as we talked about before from power cycling. Resistors, capacitors store power. So by that I mean you have to be a little more patient. So when I have you disconnect your LAN cord 50 amp service, then you cycle your 12 volt. Wait 20, 30 minutes. Let those things, the capacitors and things, drain the power out.
20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, wow. Wait, because it'll hold juice. And then you want to cycle the power back on. Even if you turn the power off directly at the inverters, which like Victron as an example, they have just on off on the front, so them accessible to you via the compartment. Still make sure you kill the power everywhere else in the coach, then flip those, and then wait. Let those things completely de-energize and fire them back up.
Is there a way to reset those inverters?
There is. So,
or is that something we don't want?
We don't want the public to do that. Some of our dealers are capable. Just kind of goes back to the Firefly screen earlier on. We talked about going and taking pictures of your setting page. Same thing with your inverters. Either it's on the inverter itself. Victrons have a servo screen next to them. It's kind of a secondary controller that you control. You can set settings or view settings in that. Take pictures of that and keep them. One thing that we validated earlier in the year is that if Victron has an update, it 100% of the time sets those settings back to default.
Yep.
So once the end user or a dealer has those pictures, they can go right into Serbo and select them. Just scroll through the menu screen and hit save. If you want to change settings inside, you'd have to get in touch with us. We can actually remote into the Victron systems all over the country and look at your settings ourselves and or adjust ourselves from
That's awesome.
from Elkhart, Indiana.
That's really cool.
There's one caveat there that I'm going to put out. Our team will send you a link with a video showing you how to get your system online. It has to be online first to give me the gateway to access in.
Right.
That's the only thing I'd
If
have
you're
to have
completely
you do.
dead because you've been boondocking and
That's right.
killed everything, you can't do that. But that's really cool. I love the way the technology is moving and how it's just so much easier.
It's great. And unless that one little hiccup, right? Because it controls everything, but that's why we're here.
So they probably send an email through that warranty line again.
Yep. The warranty at renegaderv.com, please.
Are we ready for the app?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
First of all, we just released an update that should fix a lot of issues. There was a huge expansion of devices that we're connected to and different internet providers, a lot more people using Starlink, and Verizon has a hotspot and all these different hotspots. So our software and engineering team has been really hard at work over several months, kind of engineering it from the ground up. And that has been released this week. So a lot of those connectivity issues should disappear as long as you have a good solid internet connection in your coach. You should be able to do that. So the app, there's kind of two different aspects of the app. We have a Mira module, which is only Bluetooth. And so that means you have to be close to the coach. And then the Eclipse module can be connected via Bluetooth if you're close to the coach, or it can be connected remotely via internet.
Yes, sir.
You can see which one you have in your coach by going to the options page and pressing app. And then it'll also tell you the security code. So a couple tips on that. I'll just kind of go over this one. First, make sure your Bluetooth on your device is on. It doesn't matter if it's the Eclipse or the Mira. The first connection has to be via Bluetooth. The update has been done, so I would suggest if people are or did have issues with that, download the newest app from your app store. If it's really just persistent, go into the module and next to that green LED light, make sure the green LED light's on. Make sure it's not red or some other color. But when you go in there, there's a little reset button. You can press that and hold it for maybe 10, 15 seconds and then let the power come back on. And that will solve 95% of the problems. If you have other problems, please call our support team or contact you guys.
Yes, sir.
But I think most of the time, if you just get the latest, make sure that you're close when you first connect via Bluetooth, you should be good to go. Do you have time for a few more?
I do.
Okay. This one it seems a little simple, but a lot of people asked about the different batteries and the settings. So could you explain to us a little bit of the difference between the lithium and the other types of batteries, and what charging settings especially need to be selected on the lithium side versus AGM or regular batteries?
So going back to the system itself, it is preset before it comes to you. So my first advice, again, is not to get button happy. Do not go in there and get button happy. And without getting really granular in the details, some things that folks didn't know, heck, I didn't know, right, at one point in time, is the difference between like AGM being voltage, lithium being state of charge. So whatever is looking at it, managing it, monitoring it, is looking for those specifics. And if you have one selected the other way, it's not going to function proper for you. As an example, a setting rest charge level in an AGM is about 12.2 volts, 12.2. A resting state of charge for lithium is 13.3. Now, a lot of folks don't understand that. And then when the lithium battery technology took over the RV industry, in my mind, thank God, just for the longevity you get out of a battery bank trying to have stability and use.
Much better.
Yes, sir. A lot of folks used to their car and used to their older RV and 12 volts. I'm showing 12.6, it charges to 13.3, and then it goes off, and they're used to that. The resting charge in lithium is 13 to 13.3, and they see the higher voltage, they think something's going on. And it's not. Through time, probably the last year and a half to 2 years, most RV manufacturers, us included, are looking at having just all a state of charge communication inverter through you guys for our lithium banks. That's still an education level that has to be achieved. Either dealers, they're probably a little more capable, but the end users, they understand what they're seeing.
Right.
The good thing about you guys and us, I mean, heck, I've got 17 folks that work in my customer experience center, and thinking about that, that's a low number. Something you said earlier on, as far as the quality of our units and being able to go down the road at 80 miles an hour and stay together. And the big benefit from us is we build on these Freightliner, Volvo, over the road chassis that are proven to get 1,000,000 miles, right? So us being in the industry as an entity, 28 years, just over 28 years, a lot of our product is still breathing on the road today. So understanding the differences and what that is,
but the
we have to
technology
educate.
is not the same as the flip phone or your dial.
That's right.
The rotary phone.
We have to educate. We rebuilt 2 2001s in our facility this year alone,
Wow.
just as an example. That person is used to what they're used to, and we have to do our due diligence to raise their IQ, if you would, as things advance.
Okay, great answer. So the blind controls, someone asked about this. These could be on a switch panel and sometimes on the touch screen closest to your blinds. We're not going to let you raise the bathroom blinds from the app, and that's a privacy issue, right?
Yes.
You don't want to be doing that, and a couple of things like that. Sometimes those are, again, safety or privacy concerns.
So one thing that we like to do is not have that functionality within our shades at Renegade. We don't put a shade control in the switch panel. We have a manual, old school mechanical switch, so people can not have those whoops moments at the campground, right? So we try to make it as foolproof as possible.
And for a lot of us, it's really thankful that
you don't
that's
want.
there.
Yeah, that's right. You don't want to see every right.
Next question from Nicholas in Nevada. He's got a 23 Verona LE. He wants to know about the Light Master. The Light Master is a light memorization that remembers what you have on. It remembers the state it was on if it's a dimmable light. You press it once quickly, and it will either turn on or turn off, whatever it memorized. If you press it and hold it, it'll turn everything on in the coach.
Will it turn it on to its full brightness?
Full brightness, yes, sir.
Perfect.
Next and last question is Scott in Texas would like some tips for his 25 Explorer for maximum enjoyment while boondocking. So your coaches are really awesome and they can go for a long time. So how can he kind of maximize that enjoyment?
This goes back to checking boxes from an option standpoint. We have a pretty flexible option list when it comes to battery banks. I would suggest going with the largest lithium battery bank that we option on that coach. And I would also suggest going with the largest amount of solar panels on the roof. I mean, from a boondocking standpoint, that's all your power. That's how you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. Now, the kryptonite to that is being wasteful inside. If something's on that doesn't need to be on, you're only hurting yourself at that point. Make sure your AGS is turned on. Make sure you're in a zone where you can actually use it, not a quiet zone, right? That you can actually use it. Our generators are all diesel. Another luxury part about the Renegade is we have the fuel cells you get in an over-the-road semi-truck. So you're running 125 gallons in some cases of diesel fuel.
You can go for a little
while.
while.
You can run for a while. Just make sure you have the largest battery bank, the largest solar panel group, and then be conservative. Just watch what you're using. Be mindful of the drain you're putting on it, if it's needed or not.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you, Renegade family, for the awesome questions and for your attention. We are proud to be part of the family, and we wish you all safe travels, awesome memories with friends and family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.